Paquette Mountains to all the Mesilla Valley, reaching all of New Mexico. Broadcasting live from the Las Cruces studios, bringing you the issues that matter and the topics that count. Telling it like it is. It's the Mike Tellez Show. And now here's your host, Mike Tellez.
It's a feeling of helplessness. Las Cruces business owners have not only seen their profits plummet during the pandemic, but they say state closures leave storefronts vulnerable to theft.
ABC 7's Katie Beery learned burglaries of businesses are up almost 300% this year. She reports from our New Mexico Mobile Newsroom.
Thieves broke into Paquette against sports not once but twice this year during the state shutdown. Little did they know they were being recorded on camera.
We literally saw the guy walk up and break into the store.
After getting burglarized not once, not twice, but 3 times, the owner of this gaming lounge is choosing to sleep inside to prevent future break-ins. The owner of Galaxy Gaming Lounge is not giving up on his dream.
I just want to make my family proud, and I made the decision to stay in Cruces because I love the people here. And I'm like, no, I can't give up.
Las Cruces police say they have patrolled the parking lots of closed businesses during the pandemic, but
of course there are a lot of them, and we can't be at all places at all times. We can't be private security guards. We can't camp out right there at that building.
Baseball equipment usually makes up 50% of the sales at Paquette against sports, but not this year.
Really trying to operate a sporting goods store for a whole year in a state where sports has been essentially illegal.
Hello and welcome to the Mike Tellez Show. My name is Mike Tellez. You saw the disturbing film. In a few minutes here, we're going to talk to some people and we're going to find out who are they, what could be the problem, what could be leading to this 333% rise in property crime in our area right here. With me today, I got Raymond, Jimenez. Ray, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
Robert Paquette. Robert, how are you doing?
I'm doing excellent, Mike.
All right. Ray, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
You have quite a history, Ray. And,
yes, sir.
Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for being open and telling us about it. Now, tell us, at what age did you start becoming affiliated to the streets and to the world that we're...
I would say it started the minute I moved into the housing area in a rough neighborhood out there in Oxnard, California. But at the time that I started getting involved with the friends, I was about 8 years old. And at 9, I picked up my first felony. So I would say around
9 years
that
old.
age, yes, sir.
So they're recruiting anywhere. That's the rules. Just that's a general age. They'll recruit anywhere.
You know what? It is. It gets even younger than that, and in some cases it might be older.
8 years old. Now, what felony would you possibly pick up as a 9-year-old?
It was a commercial burglary.
So part of what? So you mean to tell me that 9, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, it's not beyond them to break into places and steal?
Oh yes, yes. You'd be surprised of the criminal maturity that some of these youngsters would have at that age.
And why do they pick them? Why so young?
Well, a lot of times it's just the nature of the environment, and that's the process. You know, sometimes it's passed down through the families, like a generational, and a lot of them are just bred right into it, and a lot of them are
just... So
they're
a product of their environment.
Exactly. In
wow.
short words, yes.
And so 9 years old, a felony. Mm-hmm. What came next after that?
Well, from the commercial burglary, I started going into cars and residential burglaries.
And tell me, how hard was it to break into cars? Is that...
It was pretty easy.
Is it?
It was pretty easy.
In this town, I mean, we see car theft is way up. Mm-hmm. People are getting stuff stolen out of their car. So to protect their stuff, they put it in the trunk, huh?
Yes. Lock your doors.
And put it in
alarm
that trunk.
Systems have always been... it'll make someone just kind of deviate from it. They see, oh, it has an alarm. Well, we'll find one that doesn't.
Like a deterrent.
So, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in some cases. But if they want it bad enough for what's in there, a smash and grab is always an option also.
And what was after that?
After that, I started meddling with drugs.
Oh, and how old were you when you started meddling with drugs?
I believe I started marijuana about 13 years old, and then I went straight from that to crack cocaine at the age of 14.
14, smoking
Yes.
crack.
Yeah.
Wow. And where did that lead you? What?
Well, that led me to, from just trying it casually, recreational, what I thought, it just quickly led up to addiction, you know, and shortly after that, it involved me in a murder at 14 years old.
At 14 years? Were you on crack when you committed that murder? Or were
I believe I was earlier that day. I had smoked crack that day. Not at the moment of the murder, but during that day. And that's all we were doing was selling, just to come home at night and just get high on the whole.
So you made your
the whole
living
pot.
to make your living to get high?
Kind of pretty much.
Wow. And
While under the influence of an elder. You
An
know what?
elder,
Yes,
yes.
what we would call an older homie. So we were under his influence, under his
so they
authority.
directed you and told you what to do?
Pretty much, yes.
So all these guys are being directed. So someone is directing these young people.
Someone is always either directing or has an influence, or when they're amongst that crowd, there's always someone that's an alpha, the alpha male, that has seniority or authority there that most of them comply to whatever they're going to or what they're asked to do, especially if they feel they can't defeat or challenge that opponent to stand against them and oppose them
So they're
without
going to put
repercussion.
somebody who has no problem taking care of business.
Right.
And
right.
where did you live?
It's called a city called Oxnard, California.
And did you live at home or?
I lived at home, but I ran away at a very young age, and I started running away about the age of 12, and by the age of 14, I ran away and I never came back home.
You never went back home?
Never went back.
Why'd you run away, if you don't mind me asking?
You know what? My dad left, but the streets were calling to me. Like we were missing a dad, so I was missing a lot of attention that I didn't get at home. You know, and living in such a ruthless community, we needed a father figure, and so I sought that out there with the friends. I started developing a friendship with some of the neighborhood kids that grew into a bond of love, and you know, in a sense, and acceptance, and so. Once it went from curiosity to joining the gang, it just started pursuing.
So that was your family?
Exactly.
So that became your default family?
Yes, sir.
You didn't have a family at home, so you found a family in the streets. We're glad to accommodate?
Yeah, you know what? I did have an awesome family at home. A mother that worked hard, no drugs in the house, not much of love, just she worked a lot, so she was absent.
So dad was absent, mom had to work herself?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And your mother, aren't you just sorry that you put her?
Oh man, it crushes my heart. She's no longer with us, but
God,
it just crushed my heart when it all came to realization.
So you would put a great importance on a dad.
Yes.
You know, our first program we showed is, it was titled When Dad Shows Up.
Yes.
And that we showed a dad who'd been there every day for practice with his daughter, and
yes,
you saw it's amazing how that young lady's doing.
Yes,
going to go to the
is.
Olympics. The next week we showed what happened when mom was able to be involved all the way. Unfortunately, in your case, your mom had to work to support you all.
Yes, she did. You know, but in a sense, it was more my fault than the absence of her having to work.
Right.
Because
it's hard to blame someone who's trying hard to support you.
Exactly. Because I have a brother and two sisters. One's a teacher and a outstanding coach in the community that coaches football, and the other one's a doctor in social work. So, and the other one's just a righteous housewife. So I had no excuse. You know, my mom did the right thing. I was just
called. For that male attention.
Yeah.
For your dad's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And so, you know, so you went murder?
Yes.
And how long did you go to prison for that?
You know what? Being the case, I pleaded it was a self-defense case. So, but I did end up going to the youth authority for 2.5 years. And just from there, in and out. As soon as I got out, I went right back. 90 days was about the longest that I stood out from that time, that point on.
The longest you stayed out of jail?
Out of jail, yes.
The video we saw these kids running, or people running in with hoodies on and just run brazen, brave, no fear.
Right.
Do you see that here?
I see it starting to develop in
to
a
the
little
point it was in California?
Yes, because a lot of stuff that they're doing out there in Cali that's already burned out and played out, it's starting to develop here as a new discovered method of gaining, you know, gains of financial or material to be able to sell it for their
So what you
drugs.
saw there was what you did at 9 years old. So that's already been there and done that?
Yeah, that was like elementary in other words, kind
Wow.
of where just the baby steps of that criminal mentality.
Based on what you see happening right now, what are we going to see happening next?
Oh, it's going to start coming to robberies.
Armed robberies.
Armed robberies, home invasions,
Wow.
even murders. And murder's already,
Murder's up
it's
here.
already, yeah.
You know, we'll show a graph to where it shows that we are already above national average for our size murder rate.
Yes.
And
Right.
that's due, you know, I talked to the chief of police, the former chief of police, and we talked for about an hour and a half, and he told me that 98% of the crime in our city is drug-related or mental health issues. But he said 98% is tagged with that. Then, you know, 98% of our crime is from that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see that as...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the mental health is developing from the use of the drugs that are out there now.
You know what? That is what I have wondered that.
Yes.
The drugs they're using, that, and if they start real young, how can they not end up that direction?
Exactly. Exactly.
I want to know something. Is there a possibility that you could ever see us turn the tide completely around, slow it down? What is the best we can expect to happen if we exert all effort? What direction do you see it going?
There will I don't believe that it will ever cease completely, but there is a possibility of a powerful impact enough to just detour the course of things, so that those that are out there doing that could be reformed and start, you know, making their investment into the community and into life and back into their families. But it's going to take a lot of resources, and I believe that it's going to take an alliance between the educated and those with the personal experience that
because
are reformed.
we hear about the war on drugs, you hear of the war on drugs over and over and over. Now,
right.
The war on drugs cannot be fought or won behind a desk by people who have not experienced what you're telling me about.
Right.
You went through that. You've killed. You've done drugs. You've done burglaries. You've done just about everything you can do. And at what age? How many years did it take you in prison? How many years to go to prison?
In total, I've done about 13 years of my life.
13 years of your life.
Yes.
So, and you weren't. That wasn't your greatest fear?
No. No.
So more prisons is definitely not the answer.
No, it is not. It is not, because nowadays drugs are just as accessible in there as they
prison.
are out here. Yes.
And so, what was your answer?
My answer is I looked up, you know, and I just started feeling the weight of my transgressions, and it became so tangible to me that it just felt dark and ugly. And when I looked at myself in the mirror, I was just ashamed and disgusted what I've allowed myself to become, you know, an influence to the point of murder and being desensitized to murder. Wow. And, you know, and just everything that came with it. But murder was like the top way. In my neighborhood, blood was, you know, dealing with,
that was the way of
murder
life, huh?
was the way of dealing with issues. There wasn't really too much talk. And so that was the worst thing, because when it came to realization is that a lot of these guys left sons behind, mothers behind. So I realized that we were curving generations. We were affecting generations to come and those existing, and that really weighed down on me.
Wow. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more to Ray about what got him out of that, We're going to talk to Robert and see what his story is. He looks like a professional businessman. But we're going to find out the rest of the story when we return with the Mike Tellez Show. My name is Mike Tellez.
Horizon Granite is here. We'll come to you to customize your kitchen and bathroom with beautiful countertops and cabinets. Find out more at horizongranite.com. Call us at 575-650-3180.
Horizon Granite is here.
It's here.
Make yourself a beautiful home.
Hi, I'm Ray Bamberg with Here on Earth. I would like to invite you for a free hearing evaluation to our office. We've been here in southern New Mexico for 34 years helping people hear better.
If we want to improve America's healthcare system, let's start by improving the health of Americans. Despite the best doctors, hospitals, and medical advancements, Americans are not as healthy as they should be. We spend too much on treatment and not enough on wellness and prevention. We need a system based on primary care. When patients have a medical home and a long-term relationship with a doctor, the result is a longer, healthier life and reduced medical costs for everyone. Let's make America a place where health is primary.
They've stormed beaches and freed countries. They've raised our flag and our hope. They've been called leathernecks. They've been called devil dogs. But above all, they're called Marines.
And we're back to the Mike Tellez Show. My name is Mike Tellez, and we've been talking to Ray here, and it's a pretty hard story, Ray. And I'm telling you, man, I'm really amazed that you pulled out of that world, because so often we hear, I can't stop using drugs. I can't get out of this world. I'm stuck in it. This is my life sentence. But you got out of it.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you've got a family. I've seen your beautiful kids. I see them in the boxing gym. You and Daniel worked. I mean, you all worked your butts off, man, to put on an event a while back, and
Yes,
you brought 400 people. Your conviction. Where in the world is that conviction? What is that, man?
Man,
where did it start?
Honestly, all glory to God. It was in 2003 while I was sitting in a cell for another attempted murder, and like I mentioned earlier, I felt the weight of my sin, and it finally brought me to my knees, and I just confessed to the Lord, like, Lord, I need you at this moment. And within that week or two, I lost a very close friend. That something that I had influenced in his life was the very thing that caused him his life. So that was just another thing. And while being, and then hearing his mom, the cries of his mom while she was on the phone, that they found her son's body thrown like a throwaway, just on the side of a lake wrapped in a blanket. So hearing the cries of that mother,
an eerie cry, isn't it?
It was, and that just did something in me that I still can't get it out of my head, and that started the transition. And within a week or so later, I had two of my older homies from my neighborhood that were now evangelists, ministering in the jails. They came and shared the gospel with me in a way that was just so tangible to me that I understood it clearly, and from there it was just the beginning of my transition.
And so that's what I saw. I was really impressed with you and your crew there. I said, it's hard to see people who love God and Jesus Christ as much as you guys did. I mean, you sold out to Christ.
Yes, sir.
Got out of the streets and out to Christ.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Robert?
Hey.
What are your thoughts there? You got a question, I'm sure.
Mike, it's really hard for me to stay quiet this long because usually I like talking, and so it's very fascinating. You and I have Ray, because we were talking before the video, and Ray and I, you have a lot of things in common, believe it or not. Something I want people to understand about people. So often we judge people, and a camera might look at it. So often we judge people on where they're at right now, and if it doesn't seem like they have hope, then we just say they have no hope. And I too was on the streets at 12 and 13, and I spent 4 years on the streets. And fortunately, I didn't end up in and out of prison. Probably a couple times I should have gone. But life is really tough and it's hard. And Ray, just give me just 30 seconds, a minute. I want to share more of a personal side. We talked about the gang, and and I've been through all of that, and I know, and we don't need to go revisit that again. You guys talked about it, about the technical side and the rules and this and that. But tell me, when you were 12 and 11 and 12, isn't it true that even as I did, I looked towards my family for the support to help me grow and be safe? And when that falls apart, right, we start looking for, we start looking, and didn't you, for something to fill that void?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And whatever that is, and if we're not getting attention at home, if we're getting abused at home, then we obviously look out for attention somewhere else, and we find that sometimes if we're in rougher cities. We'll find that in what we call friends, and eventually other people label them as gangs, and then one thing leads to another, and you're down that path. Exactly. I mean, how did you feel? Tell me, as I said that, and you went through that transition, am I correct? And how did you feel? Share your heart a little bit about how you made that transition from mom and dad when you were innocent and young, and why it is, the reason why you decided that, it's better for me to just go do this. And
as I really look back at it, my father had planted a seed in me when I was a little kid, and he got caught stealing twice, and that I could remember. And he explained to me that it's okay to cut corners, so that stealing, that seed of thievery or whatever you want to call it, that was the seed that my dad implanted in me, and that was the main seed that grew in me.
Exactly, and I want to stop you there. It's a long story, but Mike and I were talking earlier about that very same thing, about the seeds. And one thing I want to stress, and Mike, we can talk about it a little bit, is words.
Yep.
You talked about the trends in California with the drugs and the youth, and how it's starting to come here. They've used it, they've burned it up out there, and you're right. I mean, it's the same old game, and we're recognizing it. We don't fall for that anymore. But out here, we're innocent, we're naive, and I'm starting to see the same things too, because I'm from that, and you're absolutely right. How do we stop that? We talked about that off of camera, and you mentioned that one of the ways to do that is to get the expertise for those who are already dealing with it and have dealt with it and saw the horror of the whole thing and the destruction of families. Get somebody like that here as a consultant, and to say, hey, nip these things in the bud. That's what you said, and you're absolutely right. There's wisdom in that. And so, I want to stress the fact, as you mentioned, it was words. It was the words. And as myself too, when I was leaving home from abuse and some other things at 12, 13, and I called one more time because I really didn't want to, and then my dad said the words, "Don't ever come back." And that set the course of the rest of my life. And I spent years on the streets and almost died, and I had opportunities, people try to kill me, I had drug addiction, and you know what? I felt like nobody cared, and I could just die and nobody would give a dang about it at all. And you know what I'm saying? Did you feel the same way?
Yes, sir. Yeah. After a point, that was exactly how I felt, and through the process, my heart just started getting more colder and colder, and so and now, ever since I found the Lord, He renewed that, and it's a challenge now to allow all these fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, all that, to allow it to govern my heart when it was so desensitized and so distorted and just corrupted. And but it's a process. And so
to wrap this up real quick for me, there's a couple of questions. I'm turning it back over to Mike. I could go into all the details of how we can combat this in Las Cruces, but the main thing is it's all about love. It's all about the family. It's about reaching out. Don't say the things. This is the point we're talking about. Don't say the things to your kids that you're going to regret. We all listen, very deeply, and be there for your kids no matter what. Because if you're not, you know, you might not be as lucky like Ray and myself. But there is hope for you. Turn to Jesus, like Ray said. That's what I did, and that's how I ended up. So turn it over to Mike.
Ray, what we're gonna talk about is, you know, I met you all, and you all told me your dream. You told me your goal, your passion was to get out and make a difference in this community and take what you all have lived through and hopefully go out and reach people to turn corners. Now, next week, we're going to have the president from Teen Challenge down here. I urge people to watch the program next week. When we have the president of Teen Challenge, we're going to talk about some of the ways we can make a difference in our area and some of the programs that are impacting our community. They're impacting the nation, different cities, from LA to New York to all around the country. Now, you all, when I was there, I spoke with the president of Teen Challenge at one of your events, and I told him, I said, you know, the greatest advertising you could have ever had, because I hear all the programs at work and how good they are, but I said the greatest advertising you have are these young people in here. I call you all young, but they're talking about you. They're talking about you helping, being able to bring the hope out there. And, you know, our goal is to bring a big change.
Yes, sir.
You know what? I'd like to see a revival in this city, brother.
Yes.
Because I'm going to tell you what, I live looking up.
Yes, sir.
I look out, I look up. I'm not, you know, one time Congressman Pierce said, Michael, if you want to get something done, you better get it done, because no one's on the way from Washington to help you.
Exactly.
No one's on the way from Santa Fe to help you. Get out there and start going. And that's the way we have to do it. And I commend you guys, man.
Thank you, sir.
Yourself and Daniel. There's a group of you all.
Yes.
I believe there's about
there
20 of you all.
Yeah.
There's like an army in there helping fix the place up, getting things going. You know, I appreciate you sharing your testimony with us. It's a hard one.
Yes, sir.
But you know what? You have a story to tell a lot of people out there. They need to hear your life so that they can get out of that life.
Yes, sir.
Man, I sure thank you for joining us today, Robert. It is always good to see you. I got to tell you.
I wish there was more time, buddy.
You know what? This is the fastest 30 minutes in the world. I always tell that.
Yeah.
And I'd like to
quick.
Thank the audience and urge you all, watch us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and push the like button. Comment us. Let us know what you think. Send us comments. If you have something to add, send it to us. We read them all. And I want to thank you for joining us on the Mike Tellez Show. My name is Mike Tellez.